So I'm here with my dear old friend, Lauren Gregory, who grew up down the street from me. Hey, Lauren, in Oak
Hi.
Ridge, Tennessee. We lived on a circular block, and Lauren was just around the circle for me, so we would see each other in the neighborhood a lot. And then one day, I realized that Lauren was in New York City and had become this incredible artist working with stop motion animation with oil painting, and she's to date made two music videos for my all ages music. So Lauren, thank you so much for talking
You're
with us.
welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
A lot of people have asked like how they've seen your videos and been like, how is this possible? Because it's an amazing and really magical kind of artwork that you make. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into, well, first painting and then how you made the decision to start animating your work?
Sure. Um, so I first started painting. Well, as you know, I grew up being more of a musician, and that was more of my, we were musicians together. And I went to college and floundered around and didn't know what I wanted to do for a while. And then my mom and my grandmother, who were both painters, encouraged me to try painting a self-portrait when I was in an existential funk. And they set me up in front of a mirror with some oil paints, and I just really, really had an amazing time learning how to oil paint. And I changed my major when I got back to school to the University of South Carolina. So, and that was like a quick, intuitive decision. So then I started to study painting, and it was amazing. It really became clear to me pretty quickly that that was the right path for me and what I wanted to do. I decided to go to grad school at the Art Institute of Chicago. And when I got there, I was a Southerner moving up north for the first time. I had never been in an art school environment. I had never lived in a big city before, and it was like a huge cultural shift for me all at once. And I froze a little bit. I didn't know what I wanted to do in grad school. And I decided after a couple months of not making anything that I wanted to make my paintings move. I wanted to see the oil paint move around, preferably on the painting itself. But if I couldn't make it do that, then I wanted to figure out a way to make it visually happen in video form. And I started to experiment with taking photos of my paintings and then changing them a little bit, and then taking another photo and documenting them as they changed. And then I realized that I was just animating. And so I didn't set out to become an animator, but once I realized that animating is what I was doing, it was a very multidisciplinary school, interdisciplinary, and I was able to mentor with a couple of animators and kind of learn the ropes that way. So I never took any animation classes, but I teach animation now. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it, and then I just really fell in love with the feeling of seeing the oil paint move. And it took painting, which has always been like this kind of still medium, and there are ways to bring movement into painting, but like this makes it like a time-based, moving, changing, morphing experience. And I really like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what is the feeling that you got from seeing your first oil painting move?
Um, It was exciting. You know, it was a little bit jerky and the lighting was flickering. It reminded me of like an old wooden roller coaster as opposed to like a new flashy, smooth roller coaster. It had that like excitement of, it was like poorly put together and you weren't quite sure like what direction it was going to go. So that was cool. And then as I've become more experienced, I've been able to smooth out my process a little bit, but it felt amazing. And I, felt that I had unlocked the key to making my paintings time-based, making them exist over time.
It seems like incredibly intensive, painstakingly detailed and hard work. Can you tell us, or maybe show us a little bit of the process, and maybe we can see a little bit of the finished product?
Sure. So when I first started animating, I had my paintings upright on the wall or on an easel, and then the camera like this. But now I work flat on my desktop surface. So I have like a sit stand desk that I'm sitting at that I can raise and lower. And this is my workstation. So I've got my camera mounted up above my desk. It connects to a trigger that I press to take the next photo. And it also connects to, this is what the trigger looks like. So I press a button on this keypad, and that's how I take the photo. And then this is the surface. This is the type of surface that I would normally paint on. It has a little bit of paint on it right now, but normally I would make a painting on a pane of glass and make the full painting, take a photo, change the painting a little bit, and then take the next photo, change it a little bit more in the same direction, take a photo, and so on. And then string it all together on the computer in post-production.
Can you estimate, or have you kept track of like how many photos are you taking for like a song like Anta Gata Doko Sa, which is like a 3-minute long song, or maybe a little less?
Well, so when you look at the screen, there are lots of different elements collaged together that have been painted separately. So
right.
For example, the girl is painted in one go. And so that's like many, many photos, probably an average of 15 or 20 photos a second.
Wow.
And then all of the different moving elements of the background or all the other characters, those are each also another layer that I painted individually with their own frame count of roughly 15 frames per second. So it turns into thousands and thousands of photos. And then the purpose of painting on a green background is you can take the green out at the end, and then you have a transparent background. You can layer things on top of one another.
Yeah.
So yeah, thousands of photos.
That's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And the first thing I saw of yours, actually, that got me interested in asking you to make a music video was a GIF of a waterfall that I found so beautiful, so brilliant.
Thank you. I started with sort of longer form linear animations that have a start and a finish. So, and then I eventually got into looping. I realized that looping was something I was very interested in. So my standalone pieces that are not music videos, they often loop. Sometimes they're 1-second loops, sometimes they're 30 or 40-second loops. But yeah, I started with sort of a more linear, traditional animation.
Mm-hmm. You'd made a couple of music videos before we worked together, but I think you told me that mine was the first music video you'd made for kids.
Yes.
Did that feel different? How was that process different from the other ones that you'd made?
It did. It did feel different. It gave me a freedom to use my imagination more, which I didn't realize that there were entire swaths of my imagination that I hadn't been allowing myself to use. But I think when I make work for adults, I restricted it to being tied to reality in certain ways. And when I was telling a story for children, I allowed myself to just be more whimsical and think outside the box, and things didn't have to make sense in quite the same way. And it just allowed for more magic. And so I've tried to take that to heart and bring it into the rest of my practice. But it's especially that experience of making Anta Gata Doko Sa. I just had such a ball making that video. It was the best. So, and Unhurried Journey is also just a totally different vibe, but I love just the slow, calm feeling of that song.
And what I love about Unhurried Journey is that you brought in our kind of shared East Tennessee roots into the imagery, the Great Smoky Mountain imagery. And I love how that makes its way into your work. And I'm seeing that you're not only an incredible painter, but you are doing other forms of artwork right now, because I see a quilt behind you that I would love for you to tell us about.
Yes. So during quarantine, and I quarantined for 4 months in our hometown down the street from Elena's childhood home. And I found myself, I was painting for work. I was working on a documentary, but I found myself unable to be creative in the ways that I normally am during that time, partly because I was away from my studio. And I just decided to allow myself to have other outlets. And I got a banjo and started playing that. And I started making this quilt. And it's not quilted, like the front and the back are not quilted together yet, but the front is almost completely pieced together. So it's sort of a quilt that in my mind tells the story of my quarantine in Tennessee, and with a lot of time spent in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and a lot of time spent just doing all of the country things that I love to do. And there's a waterfall running through the middle of the quilt.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us and these many music videos. It's been really like meaningful for me in making family music to connect with somebody from my childhood and somebody as talented as yourself, and you know, just collaboration for me is the purpose for it all. So it's been really a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. I just got chills. I love that we work together, and I love that we have this history, and that we have, you know, gone on our separate paths and come back together, and that we get to make beautiful things. And thank you for your music. It's like really the best children's music out, best family music out there. And yeah, I love sharing it with young people in my life. So thank you
so much.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah. Thanks, Lana.
Bye. Bye.